make
Should I
fun of myself while the
mute
viewers listen.
Streamlabs? Okay, so leave it like I
Don't
have
mute
it.
Streamlabs.
Okay.
Brady,
Just
you're frozen,
echoed.
by the way, on Streamlabs. Maybe I'm frozen. I don't know anymore. Oh, great. So now I'm frozen. Hold up. My audio works? Streamlabs or Discord? Are we sure? Because I have both of them on.
Hello. Hello.
Okay. So my Streamlabs audio works, but Brady is frozen on my Streamlabs. I'm refreshing my Streamlabs real quick, okay? Oh, great. Everyone listening, I'm so sorry. We're really working on this. I'm trying to figure myself out now because everything else is broken around me. Uh, I do have my mic on Streamlabs. Everyone can hear me now. Yes. Sweet.
Yeah, I got you, Tyler.
I'm gonna mute myself now on Discord so hopefully I don't get an echo.
Can you hear me now?
I'm on both now.
Yeah, I might as well.
Am I showing up on the broadcast and everyone else? God bless America. Will it only take one mic at a time? We're good?
We're good?
Sweet. Brady, can you talk so I can hear you?
Tyler, one, two,
Nope,
three,
can't hear
four.
Brady. Great.
Tyler, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Now I hear you. Sweet.
All right.
We're back.
Sweet.
Well, that was fun, Brady.
Oh man, we apologize for all that. You know, it's episode 2, so we'll get all this knocked out. But who knows? It might be weather in California. That's what I'm gonna blame it on.
I'm gonna blame California till the day the cows come home, Brady. For all of their problems.
Yeah, and you know who lives in California? Brandon
Our
Broadfoot
producer.
and Brandon Broadfoot. So I'm gonna blame Brandon.
Really? I did not know that.
Yes, absolutely. If people don't know what we're talking about, if you ever raced on Monday nights with us, there's a saying called "You've been Broadfooted," and I think Broadfoot just got to us on our production show. So thank you, Brandon, for that.
Yeah, I do blame Brandon. No offense, Brandon. I actually don't blame you. It's just how things happen sometimes. But now we're going to move on to the Hot Lap segment, which is brand new here on the Hot Lap, kind of tying it in there, Brady. We'll each pose each other with a question, 3 different questions, actually. We'll have a minute, 45 seconds to respond, and then a 30-second rebuttal for the other person. Brady, though, you asked the first question to me.
Absolutely, Tyler. You ready to go?
Oh, I am so ready.
All right. My first question to you tonight is: does Mission One Esports become the new favorite team, likely to knock off Upfront Motorsports or Sick With It Motorsports, who has been the team champion the past 3 seasons in the Cops Truck Series Season 7?
Well, I mean, yes, they have to be. I think Keith Riley's the best driver in the Friday Night Series. Now the Cops Truck Series here, Season 7 of Nazra. And, no offense to you, Brady, it's not anything you're doing. It's because of all Keith Bradley, and I think he can do enough to essentially be the points getter every single race for you guys on Friday nights. That's just the facts, in my opinion. Does that mean that Upfront Motorsports or Swim cannot do it? Well, that'd be stupid of me to say, especially with Swim if they still have Adam Newber and Stephen Thomas. They very much can get the job done. That being said, I still think Upfront is the team to beat for the time being. I think they get the job done as the team championship next season, but, and this is a big but, it only takes a few bad races from Keith where he gets wrecked out. Keith doesn't really have a bad race on himself, but he gets wrecked out enough times. That championship battle for that team championship gets a heck of a lot tighter, Brady. And there's some big money involved, like you mentioned, maybe up to $200 for the team championship winner. And I think that's going to play a huge factor down the road for how this racing goes on Friday night, because now you have the most dominant driver going away from one of the better drivers in Chris Cinnamon with Keith Bradley. It's a brand new situation for them both. I think I still have time left, but that's all I have to say on this situation.
Well, you know, I'm gonna have to disagree to an extent on the whole upfront thing. Upfront only has 3 full-time drivers. We're 2 weeks away from kicking off speed weeks. Okay, so we don't even know who's going to join their team as a fourth and fifth driver. Swim, they still have Adam Newbert. They got Stephen Thomas, Jeff Sickles, Adam Newton, who's new to the series and will be joining. He ran a select few races towards the end, but now he's coming full-time the Friday night. And then you have Justin Lumpkin, who is kind of hit and miss right now on work and showing up. So I think Mission 1 will knock both of them off. And surprisingly, it's not just Mission 1, BP Racing for Autism, Dep Racing, Highline. There's a lot of players that come into it. I see Upfront being towards the bottom and Sick with It being the third best team this season.
Well, we're going to move on because that was an interesting take you just had. And my question to you, and the topic is, we're back to Chris Cinnamon. Another minute 45 on the clock. Here comes the question first. Where does Upfront Motorsports go with Chris Cinnamon being their leading man? You already kind of hinted at that answer. And can he be what Keith Bradley was to that team? And is there anyone in NASRA who can replace Keith Bradley? I already told you my opinion. Let's hear yours.
As far as replacing Keith, no. Nobody's going to replace Keith Bradley. He's the all-time winner in NASRA. He just went in the championship race. He got 16. He's Mr. 16 now. Plus, he has that championship to his name. He goes from third to first on my list, rightfully so. I know you had him first the whole time, but with the championship, he makes his mark as the best driver in NASRA, at least today, at least this season. In this time, Keith Bradley is the best driver. You can't replace him. There's nobody close enough. Like you said, the second and third place guys, which I believe is Stephen Thomas and Chris Cinnamon, they have 7 wins. Keith has double the wins of those drivers. You're not going to replace him. Chris Cinnamon, he is put in a position where he has to be a leader now. He can't just go and play softball with his buddies, hang out, have a good life, drink some Crown Royal in Canada, and just show up Friday nights and race and rely on Keith to give him information during the week. He has to rely on Chris Blanchard, no offense, Taylor Peacock, no offense, to kind of help him and practice during the week to give him information to share. I don't think they get it done. From what I'm hearing on the inside is that they don't even really talk during the race to begin with. So you're in a Discord now where it's really, really quiet, where you know Keith likes to talk, he likes to share information, he likes to help out his team. So no, Upfront is going to take a back seat this year. They'll regroup, they'll find a fourth and a fifth driver. I have no doubt John will. But it will not be to the caliber as we've seen Upfront going from 4 full-time drivers to 5 now. They have to find an extra driver and they lose Keith Bradley. I don't see it getting done, Tyler. Sorry.
Yeah, my 30 seconds here. And my thing is, I agree. I don't think Upfront gets the whole shebang. You're right. They do have to replace really 2 drivers now that there's 5 full-time drivers on the roster. It doesn't happen. Do I think Chris Cinnamon still has a great year, makes the championship 6? Sure as hell bet I do. I would put money on it right now. There's no way Chris
That wasn't the question, though. That was not the question, though.
Here's the better question. Who can replace Keith Bradley? You're right. No one can yet. But maybe someone will come up.
Well, that's that's a topic for another day, I guess you can say. But moving along. So my next question to you, Tyler, is not NASRA related. It's actually NASCAR related. We're going to get into the topic of NASCAR and what's going on. And my question to you, Tyler, is Is Josh Berry the right fit to replace Kevin Harvick in the Cup Series, and how much success do you see him having with Ford?
Oh, minute 45. Is Josh Berry the right fit right now? Yes. I don't think there's a better current Xfinity talent in NASCAR to replace Kevin Harvick. Do I think he has success with Ford? Have you watched a Cup Series race this year? Ford is terrible. More specifically, Stuart Haas is terrible. And they just lost Brian Murphy, one of their best engineers. He's leaving the team at the end of this year. Kevin Harvick's leaving. Rodney Childers is not the same guy he used to be. Eric Almirola can't win in this car. Cole Custer can't. Oh, he's not in the he's in the Xfinity Series now. That doesn't matter. Ryan Preece, who was a great talent in short track racing, grow up, can't win in this car. I don't even know the fourth guy. Oh, Chase Briscoe. That's how irrelevant he is. I can't remember his name for a second, Brady, because they have been horrible. You want to know drivers who are higher in the point standings right now than those drivers? Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in a single car team with JTG Daughtry Racing. Bubba Wallace with 2311 Racing. You want to know who else is higher? Daniel Suarez with Trackhouse. Josh Berry is not going to turn around Stuart Haas Racing. One, he doesn't bring any money, so they have to find more funding. Busch Beer is going to go with Ross Chastain. It's already pretty much been announced everywhere on Twitter. Stuart Haas is going to lose more money, bringing in a driver who can't pay his way. Junior Motorsports has founded Josh Berry's entire Xfinity career, more or less. Is he a great talent? Yes. Will he be that Kevin Harvick? Not a chance. It's not happening. He doesn't bring the money. He's great. I don't think he's Kevin Harvick great. And on top of that, Stuart Haas is not good right now. The only Fords that have won recently is freaking RFK Racing with Chris Buescher and Penske.
Absolutely, Tyler. And I couldn't agree with you more. You know, Josh Berry, it's almost like being an NFL drive. It's best available. You get to a certain point to where you're like, man, I just got to take the next person off the board because he's the best available. And I feel like Josh is in that position. Now, hey, congratulations. He got a cup ride. I know it was his dream. He did a hell of a job in that 9 car. Did it even just as good in the 48 to replace Alex Bowman for those weeks. Great job by Josh Berry. Congratulations to him. But mediocre at best. I'm sorry. I don't even see him winning a race.
Yeah, I think Josh Berry may win a race. I don't think he doesn't, but we're going to move on to the next question, and that's a topic for a different day, whether or not he wins a race. And my question, actually, we're going to go to the truck series because I think this is an interesting conversation because we haven't seen a female driver in Cup since Danica Patrick left the Cup series, I think, full time in 2017 or 2018. And it has to deal with Hailie Deegan and Tony Brettinger, one of the up-and-coming rising stars, versus Hailie Deegan, who's been in trucks for 3 years now, hasn't really done anything for it. But she did have a relatively successful Xfinity solo run at Vegas last fall. And my question is, after another solid top 20 Friday night in the Tricon Garage Toyota with Tony Brettinger and another mistake by Hailie Deegan, she wrecked out very early in the race. Do you think Tony Brettinger has what it takes to advance full-time to trucks and run competitively? And alternatively, should Deegan abandon the truck series and stick to Xfinity where, I mean, in one race, she had way more success than she's had in almost 3 years of trucks?
Yeah, uh, yes. To your first question about Tony, yeah, she deserves a truck ride. I mean, you want to see women come into the sport and do well, be successful. It's bad enough. I don't know about your wife. Congratulations. I know you just recently got married, Tyler. But like my wife, it's all about, hey, I'm gonna go for Casey Kane because he's the hottest driver in NASCAR. Like it would be nice to have females come up here and kind of be somewhat successful so you can get some of those, the females, the wives kind of into it because at the end of the day it's like a hobby, you know. So you want your partner or whatnot to be a part of that with you. My wife comes to Talladega. She enjoys the races. So why not, have some, diversity in the sport and have some females running. Tony does deserve a truck ride and I hope she gets it. As far as Hailie Deegan goes, yeah. I mean, look, she ran that '07 car last season, I believe. She finished what, top 10 in it or whatnot. I can't remember.
Riley Herbst did.
Yeah. So I mean, she deserves, I think, to move up. And I think it's keeping her down in the truck series is just only hurting her. Some people we've seen that in the past with drivers. We've seen some of them struggle in the trucks, but then they go to Xfinity and they do well. It's all about personal fit of how well you do in what vehicle. We've seen people, I say guys, but we've seen mostly, just drivers struggle in the trucks and go on and be successful in different vehicles. That's like comparing Josh Berry to the Xfinity core to the Cup core. So yeah, I do think both of them need to move up, and I hope we see it in the coming season.
Yeah, my quick 30 seconds. I agree with you. I think Tony Brenninger deserves that ride. She hasn't finished worse than 10th outside of Daytona in the ARCA series. And that ARCA series is full of great talent with Jesse Love and a couple other drivers there that are full of a great talent. Frankie Muniz, former TV star, is also running great in that series. I think he's top 3 in points. Haley Deegan, though, she is far more suited for a much looser type of vehicle. She grew up driving dirt trucks. I think she'll be far more successful in Xfinity than she is in the current truck series because they get tight. They're not a loose driving car at all in NASCAR.
And back to the question before about Josh Berry on the topic of Ford. This is where Ford struggles, in my opinion. The development of these drivers. That's why they have to go out and steal from Chevrolet or Toyota. And we'll get into that maybe in the next episode or two. But yeah, Ford needs to do a better job of developing these drivers.
I agree.
So my last question tonight to you, Tyler, is, and this is back to Nazra. With the new rules that have recently been placed on the Monday Night Series, in particular, the SimRacerHub.com Truck Series, do you see a trend of less cautions in the races, or the races staying the same as we've seen these past 2 weeks?
Yeah, you mentioned that rule, and that rule is that we're lowering the DQ incident limit to about 14 for most tracks, and then 20 for select tracks, mainly road courses where off tracks are very prevalent. Do I see it having a big effect? At certain tracks, yes. At other tracks, no. Am I worried about the short tracks with the Monday Night Crew? Yes. I think Martinsville is going to be very, very difficult. I think that it's going to be great for the road courses because it'll minimize the chaos because drivers are going to be a lot more patient. They're not going to be as willing to go off track because they only have essentially 20 slight off tracks and then you're DQ'd. Mile and a halves may be the same old, and it's going to get into my question to you in just about a minute's time. And the frustration, I think, with a lot of drivers right now is just the quality of the racing and the amount of cautions on Monday night. The quality of the racing up front has been fantastic, in my opinion. You've seen drivers like myself, Adam Newbert, Sean Hamilton making slide jobs, Jose Luis Rivera running great with Lance Miller and all these guys. And we've been able to race each other very clean, but we battle very, very hard, yourself included. But it seems like drivers are being way more aggressive in the back of the pack, maybe because they feel like they have to make a move immediately. And to some extent, yes, they do with the tracks we've been running, but you have to make smarter moves, higher percentage moves. And I think this new DQ incident limit and the whole penalties with the EOLs coming up will cause drivers to take more high percentage moves.
I agree. We put a lot of pressure on these drivers to perform, right? You got to go out, you got to get stage points. We've seen drivers like Cody Knott in particular, kind of just not qualify, run in the back, not getting these stage points and these stages, which are crucial. And you missed the playoffs by 1 point. Why? Because you only have 3 stage points throughout the whole 14 regular season races that we run. So stage points is a big deal. That's why you see wrecks and cautions. Typically, if a stage is 25 laps, we get cautions at lap 21, 22 because drivers are fighting for every point, every inch. So hopefully it does calm down a little bit, but I do see this trend where we put so much pressure on the drivers that it's just going to be chaos moving forward.
I'm going to have to give you a technical there, Brady, for going over that 30-second timer. I'm looking at you. I saw it expire.
It's the first show. It's the first show.
Seconds. Flag on the play. You got to follow the rules. But I'm going to continue on with kind of this theme of the racing on Monday. And the topic here is Michigan International Speedway, and I think it's a great track, but we saw massive runs every single restart by the driver and second down the backstretch. It happened to myself. It happened to Sean Hamilton. Whoever was second on that restart got a run and got by the leader, generally entering 3 and 4, making the leader a sitting duck, more or less. Trucks were sliding, though, making for some great racing at times up front. But despite all that, the race had 12 cautions for over 1/3 of the race distance as advertised. What has to change amongst the drivers after two very difficult broadcasts and races in a row?
Yeah, you want to preach, but I had a little meeting with the drivers before the race, and I thought, man, like guys are listening, guys are going to pay attention. I've actually had, I'm not going to say their names, but I've had a handful of drivers reach out to me for advice. Man, I'm kind of running in the back because I don't want to be involved in things, but I get caught up in the stuff that's happening back there. So there's no safe place right now in this series. So, like I said, we talked about Jose winning that race. It was the best race that he ran, and he had a lot of luck because he was around a lot of the chaos that happened. I was running second at one time, and I was fearing for my life before the first stage even ended because the way the runs came, third place would get a run on second, fourth place would get a run on third. It would go back and forth. Well, you can't predict the weather; it's on random. You can't predict how the track's going to run or how the race is going to go. I think everybody just needs to slow down. You know how they say slower is faster sometimes, and I think when guys are racing in the top 10 because they qualify well, because a lot of people focus on just running, 2 laps, hot laps, uh, as this segment's called. They qualify well and they burn their stuff up to stay up there. And when the guys save their stuff to come up through the field, they want to block and they want to hold up because they want to get stage points. But sometimes you just need to let them go and fight another day. You know what's better than finishing 27th? Finishing 12th. And some drivers just need to realize that it's okay to have those days where you run 12th and finish 12th.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly, Brady. It's all about realizing where you can finish and maybe just accepting that you're not a top 5 truck that day. You're not a top 10 truck that day. You're not a winning truck. Just taking your top 15 and moving on. It happened with me at Daytona. It happened with me at Nashville. I got involved in a wreck. Patience is key. A lot of drivers have mentioned that in the chat. But I also think understanding what the high percentage moves are. Restarts on the bottom, on the apron at Michigan. Yeah, you're slower, but everyone's going to make mistakes. And that's going to conclude
Absolutely.
hot laps here. Brady, I think that was a pretty fun first segment. We got into some controversial topics. I know I'm going to probably irritate a lot of Josh Berry fans with my take on what he's going to do in the Cup Series next year. But unless we see a big change from Stewart Haas, it's not going to happen. But we're going to quickly move on to the Monday night Truck Series. Past race was at Michigan. 100 laps. That's 200 miles at the 2-mile D-shaped oval, Brady. Really was a frustrating race. I mentioned 12 cautions for over 35 laps of caution period. But when there was racing up front, it was probably some of the best racing we've ever seen, again, amongst the leaders so far in the Monday Night Series, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about the 12 cautions, but we forget about some of the great racing that we saw. The finish, even though it was a green white checkered, uh, because there at the end there was a lot of strategy in this race. We had 5 total sets of tires for 100 laps, so you saw an opportunity there with I believe 7, 8 laps to go for people to go down pit road and take tires and still kind of come off and I think was sitting like 14th. So, of course, you're going to kind of fly by some of those guys that are on older tires, even if it was like 5 to 8 laps older tires than the rest. Those fresh tires paid off to where you could work the bottom. And some guys, are not aware of that, of what's going on to the point to where they want to block, right? You're running fifth and you don't, hey, I got to go. There's 5 laps to go in this race, but the guy has fresher tires than you, and he's making the bottom work, and he's passing you, and he also has the momentum to go by you. So I'm not saying a lot of this stuff is intentional. It's just a big time awareness deal. Knowing when to lay over and knowing when to push. And some of these guys just need to learn that, like I said earlier, you you're fighting for sixth place, but you get wrecked and finish 30th. Fall back to seventh, fall back to eighth. Take the good days with the good days and forget about those bad days. So that's my take on the recap of that. Like we said, Jose, running, you won both stages, stage one, stage two winner. We don't even want to talk about that.
No,
That's beside the
horrible.
point. 20 20 stage points. Congratulations, whoop-de-doo. But Jose Luis Rivera is the talk of the race. I'm so proud of Jose. If Jose would run like that week in and week out, Tyler, we would be talking about championships with him. But he's just inconsistent to where we go to Talladega, we don't know the Jose we're going to get. Martinsville's next. We've seen Jose run well at Martinsville, but we just don't know what Jose we're going to get. So until he gets more consistent, like we've seen at Michigan, putting together an entire race, proud of him, Jose. If you're watching, congratulations, brother. But he needs to do that week in and week out for him to be a contender in this series.
I agree. Jose had the race of his life on Monday, better than the Talladega win he had in the Friday night series 2 seasons ago, which he does owe me for that win. You're welcome, Jose. He ran a great race. He did the strategy call. I wish he would have taken the bottom lane. I would have pushed him. Maybe I would have tried to pass him for the win on the last lap, but I felt like I would have had a better chance if he took the bottom. I was stuck behind the second place driver on the bottom there, so I'm a little upset with him at that. But you're right. He had a great race 3 seasons ago, I believe, in the Monday Night Series at this point at Martinsville. A race where Depp Racing had their best race probably ever with a 3rd, 4th, and 5th finish behind Ted Wade and Keith Bradley. Arguably one of the best races that team's ever had as a group. But you're right. It comes really down to the racing product at Michigan. We talked about with a little bit of our conversation during hot laps, is highly dependent on drivers' ability to be patient and kind of accept things the way they are. And we're going to pull up the season 2 point standings here real quick to show you what the Truck Series looks like. Like we said, it's you can't really see the points amongst the winners, but there are going to be drivers who miss some races now that we no longer have drop races on the Monday Night Series. It's going to affect things, but there's a pretty significant gap between the first and second place driver in the points versus the 21st place driver in the points, Brady.
Yeah, Tyler, you're at top of the standings, and we got Sean Hamilton from Mission One Esports in second. If we're going by points, we're not looking at the wins. Of course, it's winning you're in. That's why the winners are at the top of the standings. But Sean, you've got a 42-point gap on Sean. Now he's, mentioned that he's coming, to kind of, I guess, close that gap a little bit. Maybe a little side talk between you and him. A little friendly trash talking.
Yeah.
But for the most part, these guys are ranked by playoff points. And by what we mean by that, if you win a stage, you get a playoff point. If you win a race, you get 3 playoff points. So, Tyler, I believe you have 8 playoff points. Correct me if I'm wrong there.
After the 2 stage wins.
Okay, so 10. So that's why you're at the top of the board. But we see guys like Joey Styres having success. Him and Joey Doucette, it was the battle of the Joeys at Michigan until lap 5 came around and they took each other out. But Brute Force Motorsports, Robbie and Nate, they're having decent years, decent seasons, I guess you can say. They both have wins. And Jose, he jumps up to 5th. Now we do have 6 different winners in 6 races, but Blake's a part-time driver. He still gets credited with that win, but not in the standings because he's not running for a championship.
Correct.
But Jose's climbing, right? Jose has the momentum. Adam Newbert, he's up there because he gets stage points every week. I think he got 17 at Michigan. So that's how big stage points are. Sean Hamilton right there in 6, consistent. We've seen Sean top 5 after top 5. Jason Morales didn't have that great of a showing at Michigan. Kerry Tribute got DQ'd before he even crossed the line because I think he had like 16x DQ'd. So there's a lot of drivers that we expect at the top, but there's also a lot of guys that we're surprised to see in the back, like myself, Hunter Parsons, Steve Bornett, he's back there. A lot of guys that had success last year or deep in the standings, and they need to make some moves. And I think that goes back to the pressure that we were talking about with having to perform week in and week out. There's a lot of new faces to the series this season, and I don't think guys are used to it. Brian Chu, I'm looking at, he's the cutoff guy right now. Kyle Hess is outside the playoffs right now. Tim Hammond, those guys wouldn't. Jacob Klinghart, those guys wouldn't even make the playoffs if we ended it today, Tyler.
Yeah, and I think also taking account missed races. Nathan Mowers missed a race. Jacob Klinkard's missed a race or two, and those guys are still having very solid seasons, Brady. But you bring up a good point. A lot of drivers we would consider to be top drivers, the Brady LaBeoufs, yourself, obviously Hunter Parsons, not having a great start to the season, but there are races coming up where these drivers have a chance at a win. I don't think we should discount them this early. But it is interesting you bring up it was 6 different races, 6 different winners. The season has gone. It's been a season of parity again so far in the SimRacerHub.com Truck Series on Monday nights here in the Nazareth family. And we're looking forward to the next 3 races: Talladega, Martinsville, Homestead. We're going to take the week off on July 3rd for the 4th of July holiday. But then again, we're back on it July 10th for Talladega, and then Martinsville, Homestead on the 24th, Brady. 3 very, very different tracks. A track where Jose won in the Friday night series just a season ago. And we go to Martinsville, a track where I'm very, very comfortable, even though I hate short track racing. I'll be the first one to tell you. And then Homestead Miami Speedway driver Robbie Richards, our Daytona winner, won last season. He's the king of Florida, has not lost a race in Florida for points yet in SimRacerHub.com Truck Series history. A lot of things can happen. Will we have our first repeat winner in the next 3 weeks?
I'm gonna say no, because Talladega is just so up in the air, right? I mean, we're gonna talk about predictions next week, but we won't pick any winners this week. But we'll talk about the guys that are gonna run up front. You got Taylor Peacock, Chris Blanchard. You know those guys are gonna run up front. Yourself, Jose, Jacob. Even though all 3 of you guys are not even on the same team, all 3 run for different teams. That's Jacob with Brute Force Motorsports, Jose with Warrior, yourselves with Highline. So are you guys going to work together even though you're on different teams?
I think it's not work together, but it's more if we're around each other at the end and we're not near a teammate, there's a familiarity there, right? I will say, though, the only ever pairing on the Friday night series to work with each other well was Jose and myself. Every other time, we've wrecked each other. It's not even close. I wrecked Dana Shepard one time. I think Jose and Jacob wrecked each other one time. Quite literally, the only pairing from the Friday night depth team that works well at Super Speedways is Jose and myself. So something to keep an eye on. But you mentioned we're not going to get much. We're going to talk more in the final lap about maybe some drivers really like
you
it.
know, and real quick, you talk about Robbie being the king of Florida. He does not run good at Talladega for some reason. Even though they're basically the same race. He runs well at Daytona. He's won twice there. I think he almost came close to winning on Friday nights, or has a win there on Friday nights. Maybe I'll have to check that for another show. But he does not run well at Talladega.
Nope.
So Homestead, Justin Lumpkin. Anytime we go to Homestead, we're looking to see if Justin Lumpkin joins the session. Because if he does, we all just ride for second. Martinsville is a wild card. I'm assuming Hunter Parsons is going to be up there. He typically runs good at short tracks. Taylor Peacock runs better at short tracks than mile and a halves. So who knows? Well, Joey Doucette, he has a win at Homestead. Will he crack into the win column and win at Homestead? I can see us going through these next 3 races. We will make 9 races, 9 different winners on Monday night.
It's very possible, and I wouldn't be shocked, Brady, at all. But we're going to quickly move to the final lap. Here at the final lap, we have 10 minutes to go over as many topics as we can to fill out what we need to here. 10 minutes, we got 6, 7, 8, maybe even 8 topics, Brady. I'm looking here at the show sheet. We got a lot to cover tonight. And we're going to start here with the clock starting at 10 minutes. First thing up, Junior Motorsports has a seat to fill now that Josh Berry is moving on. Who fills it, Brady?
So I broke it down to 3 guys. I'm going to tell you who I'm gonna tell you who I think might get it, who could get it, and who I want to get it. How about that? Okay. So the first guy is Zane Smith. He's got ties to Junior Motorsports. He's raced for them in the past. We've seen him in a Junior Motorsports. You just saw Ford go still a Chevy guy. You're going to see a Chevy, maybe still a Ford guy, right? So Zane Smith needs to get out the Truck Series. He needs a full-time Xfinity ride. He has ties to Junior Motorsports, like I said. Zane Smith is one of the 3. Ryan Truex. Dale Jr., and Martin Truex have this relationship. They have ties to each other. Ryan Truex has a win at Dover for Joe Gibbs Racing. He deserves a full time ride. Why not Junior Motorsports? And my pick, who I want to see get it, who I think deserves to get it, is Corson Hocevar. I think he deserves to get the ride. He's driven for Spire Motorsports. He has ties to Chevrolet. He deserves to get it. I hope he gets it. Corson, if you're watching, I hope you get it, buddy.
All right. We're going to go real quick. I hate Carson Hocevar. No offense, Carson Hocevar. It has nothing to do with you as a person. I think you're actually great for the sport as a personality, but your on-track antics have irritated me to enough I'll never forgive you. Dane Smith's a Ford driver. It's not going to happen for him. Ryan Truex is a Toyota driver, but he's not a full-time driver. I think that is actually your most likely of the three outside of Hocevar, which is easy because he's a Chevrolet driver already, who I want to see. And it's a bold take. Carson Quaffle from the Cars Tour Series in Junior Motorsports. He's the only driver to essentially not finish outside of the top 5 in every single race around the Cars Tour except for one. It was North Wilkesboro. He didn't have a great race, but he also got wrecked a few times or had some issues on pit road. I can't remember what it was. Yeah, something went against him in that race. So I hope Carson Quaffle gets the ride in the 8 machine next year. If not, I'm okay with Junior Motorsports going down to just 3 full-time cars as a Junior Motorsports fan. Next thing up, though, this weekend, big races. Xfinity Series and the Cup Series take to the Chicago Street Course. It's going to be an interesting race in the, I would say, the nice part of Chicago. I mean, it really is a nice part. You got the park, you got the museums right there.
Central Park, right? It's really the Central Park of Chicago, right?
It's really the only nice part of Chicago, if we're going to be quite honest. But who is your prediction to win the Xfinity race and the Cup race?
Well, interesting to note that I realize is there's no Cup drivers allowed to race in the Xfinity race. Why?
Correct.
Because it's a new track, a new course. So we don't have any Cup drivers. Parker Kligerman has stated that if he wins, he will jump in the fountain. That will be a new victory lane kind of deal for him. But I think it's going to come down to when you go to a new course or a new track or whatnot, you kind of go to the veterans of the sport, right? The Justin Allgaiers, people like that. I think you'll see Justin run up front. I think you'll see Cole Custer up there, the John Hunter Nemecheks, typically the guys that tend to run well at road courses. So I'm gonna pick Justin Allgaier to win for the Xfinity. As far as the Cup goes, I mean, how can you bet against guys like Chase Elliott, Martin Truex Jr., Kyle Busch, new track. Kyle Busch always seems to win at the new tracks every time they go there the first time. Kentucky rings a bell. So AJ Allmendinger, Kyle Larson, those guys, but I say AJ Allmendinger gets it done in the Cup Series.
Xfinity Series pick. It's a wild card pick. I'm taking Justin Marks. He's the only driver to finish top 5 in Xfinity Series cars, and really cars that shouldn't finish top 5. He's great on the road courses. He knows how to get it done, and he's in a trackhouse prepared car. He'll have the best equipment there, in my opinion. On the Cup Series side, Tyler Reddick's the best driver in road courses right now in NASCAR. Joey Logano has won the last 3 races at brand new tracks in the NASCAR Cup Series: Gateway, Nashville Coliseum, and Bristol Dirt. I'm going to take Tyler Reddick, much better road course racer than Joey Logano. Next up, though, Talladega Super Speedway preview. We only had 4 cautions at Daytona on the SimRacerHub.com Truck Series, but only 15 trucks finished on the lead lap. How will it differ at Talladega, or will it be the same?
Well, it's going to be the same. We typically, and I think we say 4 cautions, but 2 of those were stage, right? Stage cautions?
Yeah,
I think that was a topic. Yeah.
I believe one of the stage cautions had an actual caution at it.
Okay, I think the first stage ended under caution, so we'll call it 3.
But they're all only 15 trucks in the lead.
They're all the same. If we run stage 1 caution free, we typically have a caution in stage 2 or vice versa. So you're going to see a mini big one in one of the first 2 stages, and then you'll typically see the big one after green flag pit stops in that final run. So I'm calling 2 cautions besides the stage cautions. That typically happens. But I think it's going to be the same thing. We'll go through green flag pit stops. They'll have a caution. We'll get bunched up back again. We'll have a big one, and you'll see 15, maybe even less, 10 trucks on the lead lap. It's just the luck of the draw. It's a lucky race. If you win it, you can be excited all you want, but hey, you might as well go buy a lottery ticket because you probably have a better chance of winning a lottery than you do winning that race, Tyler.
Well, if you're me, then yeah, that's most definitely true, for sure. I don't think I've ever won at a track greater than 1.5 miles. Not true. Coda's pretty big, but that's a road course. Doesn't count. I do see being maybe more of the same. I actually think it's going to be more cautions at Talladega. People think because it's a little bit of a wider track, they can make more moves. They're going to make more mistakes because of it. We're going to see more three wide. And that's going to breed cautions as it always does, even though it's a wider track than Daytona is. I think it's going to be a bigger mess, but keep your eye out on the drivers who've done well in the super speedway so far. SimRacerHub.com Truck Series history. That's Robbie Richards, Jason Morales. He finished in the top 3 at Daytona. Brandon Bullock, he finished, 5th at Daytona. He's always a pretty solid super speedway driver. You brought up Taylor Peacock as always. Keep your eye on those guys. We're not going to have our race predictions until next week's show because we're off this Monday. And next week's show will also have the predictions for next Friday's race, which will be a preseason race. Correct, Brady?
Correct. That's it. The Clash at Auto Club Speedway.
Yeah. Quick. One driver, no talking about him. Who's your prediction for season 7 Concerned Police Survivors Championship? Just name the guy.
Adam Newberg.
All right. My counter will be Jacob Klinkart.
Wow.
Think of that what you may. Think of that what you may. But we're now going to move on to what I think will be fun. The Dash for Cash Crown Jewel races for the Friday night series. We got Kentucky, Phoenix, Richmond, New Atlanta, Dash for Cash. I think we can just say New Atlanta's a crapshoot. But do you see any driver winning multiple races in the Dash for Cash? And if so, who?
Oh man. Well, the X factor in that, as you just named it, was Atlanta. So, Old Kentucky, that's a wild card. Richmond, Stephen Thomas rings a bell. So I think Stephen Thomas has the best chance of going multiple wins just because Richmond. And so if you knock out Richmond, he possibly could knock out Kentucky or even knock out Atlanta. So I'm gonna say Stephen Thomas could be a multiple winner in those Dash for Cash races.
Outside of Stephen Thomas, honestly, Keith Bradley. Kentucky, 1.5 miles. He's always very good there. Chris Cinnamon, also very good there. Phoenix, Keith Bradley, again, I always consider him to be really, really solid at tracks that are not short tracks, that race kind of like short tracks. Richmond, yeah, it's probably Stephen Thomas's playground. I agree with you, Brady. New Atlanta, though, Bradley, very solid super speedway racer. Was maybe some of that from having Taylor Peacock or Chris Cinnamon on his team with Ted Wade? Maybe, we don't know. But Crown Jewel races, those 4, Daytona, Charlotte, Darlington, Old Atlanta, do you see any drivers getting 2 of the 4, or do you see anyone sweeping?
That's a tough one too, because we got Charlotte, Old Atlanta, Daytona, and Charlotte. Okay, Charlotte, Darlington. Well, Keith Bradley. Keith Bradley, 2 seasons ago, ended up getting kicked out of the session, came back in 2 laps down with all the chaos going in the race. He went on to win the race.
Lock it in.
Let's see. Charlotte, Darlington. Man, it's just, Daytona, that's Robbie's playground, right? Because it's a Florida race. Old Atlanta, Devin Painter's going to be good there. Newbert's going to be good there. It's a home track for him. Yep. Keith Bradley. Keith Bradley's the only one that could probably win 2 out of those 4.
Yeah, I don't think anyone wins 4, but I agree. If anyone can win 2 of the 4, it's going to be Keith Bradley because he'll win Darlington, and Charlotte and Old Atlanta are up his alley. Maybe he gets lucky at Daytona. We talked about drivers' biggest signing. Obviously, Keith Bradley's the biggest sign to a new team. One driver, no explanation. We'll talk about it more next week. Who's the other big driver to sign with a new team?
Nathan Maurer.
Okay. Nathan Maurer with, I believe, BP Racing?
BP, yep, that's correct. Nathan Maurer joins BP Racing for Autism for Eric Zimmerman, the team leader of that team, in the 95 sponsored vehicle.
My driver is going to be Justin White with Highline Racing, and that's going to do it for time. Brady, oh my God, I almost said Keith Bradley. Brady LaBeouf, before we let you go, what are you doing for 4th of July?
Oh man, we're gonna have a pool. Might even get some blue crab, boil some blue crab, or we might barbecue. Either or, but it's gonna definitely be a pool day, and I'm gonna drink some of that Crown Royal that Chris Cinnamon sent me from Canada. So thank you, Chris Cinnamon. Shout out to you for that. He won the he finished 2nd in the championship. When I sent him his championship money, he told me to hold some money back and go buy me some Canadian whiskey. So I went and got me a 5th of Crown. I'm going to probably take a shot for Chris Cinnamon on 4th of July.
Yeah, well, we thank you all for tuning in our first ever hot lap here. Tyler and Brady on the brand new NASCAR 360 Racing Network podcast. Brady, I think despite the technical difficulties, this has been a pretty entertaining show, and I hope everyone has gotten out of what they really want out of it. Hopefully, next week, no technical issues. We can have a very clean, smooth, easy show. We can get a little bit into the weeds, and we'll be talking with your season 6 champion, Keith Bradley, with a quick interview next Thursday night. You can book it right now. Thank you again for joining us, Brady. Any final parting shots?
Yeah, well, the technical difficulties, we'll get those cleaned up, and we may even start a new segment called "We've Been Broadfooted" or "Brandon Broadfoot Got Us." You just never know, Tyler. This show's crazy. It's off the rail.
Yeah, well, it's been fun again. That's Brady LaBeouf. I'm Tyler Demmer. We'll see you next week, Knuckleheads.